Hello, my name is Andrea Ayotte. I am a photographer based at Aguli River, Ontario. I was born and raised in Utopia, Ontario, and my dad gave me my first 35mm camera when I was 15 years old. I really fell in love with the whole process of film photography and darkroom processing. So when digital came into play, I kind of lost the art for photography, but I grew a passion for it again in 2013 when I attended Sault College for the digital photography program. And I'd like to share some of my images with you today. My first photograph that I'd like to share with you today is a photograph I did using glow sticks to kind of scan my profile in order to create kind of a youth, an elder, spiritual being made with light. This photograph has a lot of meaning to me. As a widow, my husband passing away in 2012, I was really brought into photography through spirituality, and I find that a lot of my photographs capture the love that I have for him, and it allows me to express that inner hurt and that inner feeling. So with this photograph, I believe that I am showing my inner spirit and my true self through creative photography. By using a long exposure, I was able to create these spirits using glow sticks by scanning my face. The representation of me through the pink light and the representation of my soul through the yellow light. Photography for me, if I could give anybody any tip, is creativity, creativity, creativity. It's about finding the essence of photography through different sets of lighting and photographing things you wouldn't even imagine to photograph. You want to share your inner self. Dream about your photographs and photograph your dreams. A lot of my photography, I feel, are depictions of aspects within my life, and I create dreams that are reality. This next photo for me is really about lighting. After studying photographers such as Annie Leibovitz and Fitzgerald and Richard Avedon, I really took lighting into consideration when creating this photograph in studio. It's really all about where the highlights sit, creating depth and sculpting the actual skull in order to create the presence within this photo. A slight use of a gradient map in Photoshop allowed me to put a blue tint to the photo, which gives it kind of a sadness or a solemn feeling. This piece was created as a series with multiple animal skulls that the Sault College had allowed me to borrow. Animals such as this deer, an ox skull, bear, grizzly bear, wolf. All these images were created using the same lighting, the same color cast to create the same depth of emotion. Photography for me is a journey. It's a means of showing my inner self, showing reality, showing people things that they miss. I can bring you right into an insect's face where you can see it looking at you. The beauty of a spider or an amblypygia, things that people shy away from and disgust. And to me, I can make them beautiful. I make people who are disgusted by insects want to look. This next image is a photo I did through light painting. While exploring caves in Belize, I stumbled across a photo technique where using a long exposure and painting with your headlamp allowed you to bring out different aspects within the cave. Instead of using one bolt of flash, you could create shadows and bring out the definition within the photo just by painting more or less with your headlamp. Belize was an amazing trip for me. It was a spiritual journey. It was my first travel after the loss of my husband that really created this emotional attachment to environmental, landscape, insect, animal photography. Belize is where it started for me. Not just exploring the caves, but experiencing the jungle. It's where I've discovered some of the most extraordinary insects and came face to face for the first time with an insect called an amblypygia, or the tailless whip scorpion. While in Belize, I had found an undescribed species of amblypygia. I had brought in a specimen to Peter Nescrecki and questioned him about it. It was afterwards he got very excited about finding this specimen, and it was sent to Gil Wizen, who is an entomologist based out of Toronto, Ontario. He then described this species, and I was named as a scientific contributor to the discovery of the species. Not only finding this specimen was incredibly invigorating, I won an award in Belize for the discovery of a new species. And it was shortly after that I had a discussion with Peter Nescrecki to go to Gorongosa Park in Mozambique, Africa, and photograph a new series of insect portraits, which I will be attending in May 2018. After traveling to Belize, I had to travel again. When a bugshot workshop came up to go to Peru, I jumped on it. Machu Picchu was emotional for me. I hiked an hour and a half into the Andes Mountains with 30 pounds of camera equipment on my back. Boy, did my back hurt. But I got to see things that you don't normally see. I got to see a city that was created and built by people before the wheel was even invented. It was almost like going to see the pyramids for the first time. Every rock, everything about the place was completely perfect. Each rock connected perfectly in a jigsaw puzzle. Peru was amazing. I went with all types of different media formats for photography. I used my iPhone. I fell in love with film again. I used 2 different cameras. I did snapshots. I went on an insect photography in the Amazon jungle. I seen caiman and capybara. And I got bit by insects that don't bite. They're plant eaters. Peru was such an amazing experience. After losing my husband, I made travel a way of healing. I took my husband's ashes to Belize. I took my husband's ashes to Peru. I took it to Machu Picchu. Bringing him there with me allowed me to spiritually connect with the environment. Each time it was very emotional, and I feel that having his ashes was the way that I was able to bring him there. It's also a way for me to connect with my son and my spiritual journey, being that he is so young. It's intended for me to bring him back there so that he can experience the spiritual empowerment that these travels have brought to me. Only by losing my husband had I ever thought I'd be able to do. I want to show my son that just because things go wrong in life doesn't mean you can't do something amazing. My photography is a way for me to show the world that there's so much out there to photograph, to see, and it's so much better than, and that it's so much better in person than it'll ever be through somebody else's eyes. For anybody who wants to get into macro, I highly suggest a 100mm macro lens. I like to use extension tubes, which allows me to get in closer and create an image that's in your face. I also like to use twin lights, which are two flashes that come off the lens, which allows you to create your own lighting scenario or lighting studio around your miniature subject matter. It's also a great way to photograph small plants, orchids in bloom, or any other little miniature objects you'd like to photograph. This final image was a photograph in my latest exhibition at Cameracraft called Peru, which is a photographic journey into the Andes Mountains to Machu Picchu, and then by boat into the Peruvian Amazon, where I have multiple photographs of macro insect photos that bring you right into the faces of some of the most extraordinary insects I have ever seen. This photograph really brings me back to my roots. It almost feels like I created my first image the first time I seen the latent image appear on the page through darkroom processing. This photograph, to me, is like photographing the beginning. I really hope you enjoyed some of my photography and travel stories. You can find more of my photography at Andrea Bradbury Ayotte, facebook.com, or you can find me on Instagram at AndreaAyotte at instagram.com. Thank you for taking the time to travel with me, and I hope to see you again.
My name is Luca. I am 8 and my business name is Super Paintings by Luca. I came up with that name because I thought of super and then paintings I wanted in it, and then so I said Super Paintings, and then my dad said, why not Super Paintings by Luca? My stepmom was painting and I asked her what she was doing. So I said, what are you doing? And she said, painting. And I said, can I try? And she said, sure. And and then it turned out good. Where I do my paintings is downstairs in my house, and I just do paintings with my stepmom. It's fun. I listen to music while I paint, and because like when I'm finished we can like dance and stuff. It's fun because I get tape, I put it on the canvas, and then I mix colors all over it, and then when you rip off the tape, you can color that in with different colors. I can do mostly anything I want on a canvas. This guy from Mario, his name's Shy Guy, and in Mario there's something called Mario Kart, and in the beginning there's this guy that holds up 3, 2, 1, go, and then you start, and then I drew him and the guy called Shy Guy. Don't give up because sometimes it could be hard, but I want like to save up for a PS4. It feels awesome because most kids don't get artwork on like a store and stuff. Just keep trying and your paintings can be in the store like mine. You can find my work at the Artisan Emporium in Sault Ste. Marie.
My name's Aline Ableson. I'm a fine artist working in the Deborah area just east of Sault Ste. Marie, and I work in relief print. One of the most common questions I get asked about my work is what exactly is relief printing? And relief printing is a form of printmaking that uses a plate, usually wood or linoleum, and you carve your image into that. Whatever is left from the carving is the raised area, and that's printed with ink, and the area that you carve away is left as white or negative space. Even the ancient Egyptians used some forms of printmaking, so it's a really old technique. And around the 1800s, linoleum came onto the market, and people started to carve using linoleum instead of wood. It was a little bit more durable, and even Matisse and Picasso were known to have made some printmaking and relief print. Two of the things to keep in mind when you're working in relief printing is that everything that you carve on the block is actually going to be printed in reverse, so you're always kind of working backwards. And the other thing to keep in mind, especially when you're sketching out your designs, is that you want to really be looking at working with positive and negative space. So instead of sketching out a design based on lines and shapes, you're really looking at those bigger positive and negative spaces. Spring is Blooming is a print that I created for a print exchange that was put on by 9 in Hand Press out of New Hope, Pennsylvania. And print exchanges are pretty common in the printmaking world. You create a series and then you send it to whoever's putting on the print exchange, and in return you get a set of prints from other artists. So it's a great way to get your work out there and also a great way to build up an art collection. And this piece, it was created during kind of the end of February, early March, and I was really in the mood for something spring and cheerful and kind of lighthearted and fun. So the background is black, and that really works to anchor the piece, and that play on negative space also helps the tiny little details in the print to really stand out and shine. The other thing that I like about this piece is that it's just a really fun, bright, cheerful piece. Creating art for me is more than just about having a finished piece. It's really about the process. I need to create on a regular basis, or I get really frustrated and crabby. My husband and kids can attest to that. Quite often I'll just get an idea and it haunts me until I get it out. I'll even get up in the middle of the night to sketch something out or just get an idea jotted down. And for me, it's very much a way of life and something that I kind of need to do to feel whole. and not just a hobby or a pastime. I use a couple different techniques to bring multiple colors into my prints. One of them is reduction printing, where you actually carve away pieces of the block, and in the end of the process your block is actually destroyed, so you can only create a limited number of prints. Another technique I use is hand coloring using watercolor. And the third technique I use for adding color is a multi-block printing process. The ladybug piece was created for my son. He is obsessed with ladybugs and loves finding them wherever he can. It's a multi-block piece, and in order to print it, I had to actually carve 2 blocks, one for the red and one for the black. And one of the things you have to keep in mind when you're doing a multi-block print is what's called registration, and that's lining up the plates. So if the plates aren't lined up properly by the next color, then that print is actually scrapped. So it represents a lot of time, because sometimes the ink, depending on what the humidity is like outside, will take up to a week to dry. So a 2-color print actually represents 2 weeks of work. I've never really been much of a trend follower in any area of my life, and my work is kind of like that too. I basically just create things that I'm inspired to create or that I really like. And with this young family and living in a really rural area, I don't have a lot of printmakers or a big community of printmakers around that I can talk to. So the internet has been a real game changer for me. It's given me access to printmakers from all over the world to connect with. To a couple of different printmaking forums, and on those forums, as printmakers, we can post our work up there and ask for feedback and just kind of hash out ideas. And in terms of equipment and keeping up to date on different types of ink and materials, that's really where I get my kind of current information from. Shining Through the Darkness is a piece that I created for another print exchange. It was an exchange put on by Quest Art out of Midland, Ontario. The whole purpose of the exchange was to draw attention to mental health issues, and some of the pieces were auctioned off to raise money for mental health issues. When I heard about this exchange, I knew instantly that I had to create a piece for it. It was very much part of a healing process for me. In 2016, I was diagnosed with postpartum depression after the birth of my 4th child. And creating this piece really helped me to kind of process some of what I went through, and just how I had to learn to let go of some things so that I could really embrace living life with my family to its fullest. And in the process of going through this piece, I also really spent some time reflecting on my past and that sort of thing, and came to the realization that depression and anxiety are something I've struggled with my whole life, and it really helped to take away some of the fear of the truth of that fact. And when I was working on some ideas for the piece, the verse that kept coming out to me was from John chapter 1 verse 5, about how the light shines through the darkness and the darkness can never extinguish it. And that's really what got me through that really dark time, was just my relationship with God and knowing that He was there to see me through. And the lighthouse really symbolizes that it just stands through the storm, and it faces whatever harshness can be thrown at it, and it guides people at sea to a safe harbor. And that's really how I see God in this whole journey of discovering depression and anxiety and making my way through it. One of the things that really inspires me is my experiences, whether it be through relationships or things that I experience, events. One of the things that I really like to experience is nature. I spend a lot of time on our property just exploring the bush, looking at everything around me, the shapes, the light, the colors, the texture, and even though some of my work doesn't necessarily completely reflect nature, I really use that knowledge that I gained from being out in nature to incorporate into my work. This next piece is an Acadian fishing boat. I absolutely love the water and everything to do with it. I'm really blessed to live with Lake Huron just outside my window. And I love about the water that being out on a boat, you can experience things from a whole new perspective. And as an artist, I'm always interested in different perspectives. The piece was actually based on a photograph I took in 2004. In 2004 marked the 400th anniversary of Samuel Champlain creating the first French settlement in North America, and I'm of Acadian descent, so I kind of went out to the East Coast in 2004 as, in a sense, a pilgrimage to my Acadian heritage. I still have really close ties to family on the East Coast, and it was really a great experience to be able to celebrate that time. The boat is a symbol of the Acadian people who left France, embarking on new adventures, and they were a sturdy, rugged, hard-working boat used for everyday purposes, fishing and commuting back and forth between rural communities. They're a real symbol of the Acadian people, who were a very determined, hardy group of people, and they needed those characteristics to enable them to survive in the new world. And I'm really proud to have that as a legacy in my family. If you'd like to enjoy more of my work, you can check out my Facebook page, Aline Ableson Imprinted Studio, and I'm also on Instagram under Imprinted Studio.